My name is Otis James. I'm a full-time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a former mortgage broker. We've funded just short of $1 billion in the time that we were doing so. I ran a real estate brokerage with my father back in the day. I spent the better part of 20 years in the multifamily commercial industry, overseeing upwards of $650 million in multifamily commercial assets. I'm a licensed real estate broker in California, licensed real estate broker in Georgia. I'm licensed in insurance. I am not in the insurance business, but so I can speak intelligently about it, I went ahead and got licensed in it. I'm a long-term hold investor. I'm the founder of the 4 Data Points Academy, which is a real estate investing training platform. Well, probably one of the first training programs that don't have an end date. So it's not something you go through. It's something that you join and then you evolve with. And then the nature of our association changes the more advanced you get, right? We have people coming in as newbies, and then once they're seasoned investors, and we partner up and we flip stuff and build stuff, and we just kind of do whatever, right? More of a partnership capacity. We're continuing to grow, we're continuing to scale, and we're continuing to serve the average person that wants to get into real estate investing. I consult on multiple projects, domestic and abroad. I'm currently working on 3 projects: a commercial project, a ground build up, and some flips that I'm doing with some groups in our real estate family. I've consulted on with municipalities here in the States. I've consulted on projects abroad, and for me it is all things real estate. I was 3 years old going to real estate meetings with my father, and I've been doing real estate and been exposed to real estate and involved in real estate in some way, shape, or form ever since. Now, dang, I should have that recorded. I actually do have a pre-recorded intro that somebody did for me. I just feel real arrogant when I play it though, so that's why I'm still doing it myself. But now that we're here, let me get that background music back in. All right, now that we're here, I want to go over a few strategies, and you guys feel free to chime in. Friends on stage, if you guys can look at the chat every once in a while just to see see James's comment, just to see if there's if there's any questions there. Feel free to interrupt me. I'm one of the few people that don't mind getting interrupted with a question. The goal is making sure that people can understand this stuff. And a couple days ago, so we're here every Tuesday and Thursday. So we're on Clubhouse, and now we're also live streaming to Facebook, Instagram, and we are live streaming to Facebook, Instagram. There it is. Oh, shout out to Instagram for making it way harder than it should be, and YouTube. So if you are on any of those platforms, make sure you like and subscribe. I hate those words sound so corny. I come from a generation before the internet where you didn't ask to be liked, and now with this new I don't want to call it new because the internet's been out for a long time, but it's just corny to me. The whole thing is corny to me, right? That's why I don't post that much anymore, because you have to get on the internet to post on Instagram and all that stuff, and the world is just declining, man. Shout out to everybody here that got whoopings from their parents. If you're on Clubhouse, put a 1 in the chat if your parents gave you whoopings. Put a 1 in the chat if your parents, if you got whoopings from your parents when you was growing up, or if you had to clean up on Saturdays before you went outside. 1 person? Okay, we got 2. All right, Carmen. All right, I see you. All right. Okay, Annalie. Okay, Chuck, Deja. Okay, all right. These are the people that run the world, right? These are the folks that run the world. The people that put the 1s, we run the world. The people that didn't put a 1, y'all still trying to figure out what your pronouns are, but it's okay because we're accepting of everyone here.
I'm still in therapy for that.
Man, look, I was watching a documentary on the fighting forces of all the different countries. It was like China, then Russia, and then it went to the United States. And look, folks, you better hope we don't get no hand-to-hand combat, because we got folks in our. All right, let me stop, because I'm gonna go off on a whole tangent. This is a real estate podcast, so we're gonna talk about creative acquisitions and some of the things you need to know when you're looking at all the clickbait stuff on Instagram, TikTok, or wherever you're looking at. So what happens is, people will get you excited so they can get follows and likes and all that stuff. So they'll post something like buy a house for $500 or buy a home for $0, and they don't share the whole entire story that goes along with that. Um, so when I'm teaching folks, well, when we're teaching folks at the 4 Data Points Academy, we teach you everything so you can see behind the veil, no matter what it is, and you know what questions to ask. So when you see things that are really, really intriguing, like, all right, let me go ahead and buy a house for $500. Okay, well, what does that mean? So let me start by saying getting the house, acquiring the real estate for zero capital is not the hard part. That's the easy part. It's just some paperwork. You still got to figure out how to pay for it after that. And what I'm seeing, because I tap into some of these talks that these gurus, well, self-proclaimed gurus, are giving, and I don't comment and I don't get involved. I just kind of watch from a distance and see kind of what's out there, because if things are being taught or in a way that's misleading, then I need to make sure to come back to my real estate family and say, hey, watch out for this. This is how it's being explained. This is what you need to know, and this is how it really goes down, right? So Tuesday, we're here every Tuesday and Thursday. So Tuesday we talked about the the 4 components of creative deal structure, right? And those components were assessing the deal, taking control of it, adding value, and then exiting the deal, right? So, and then we broke that down. So I want to do it again, and but I want to use an actual scenario that we'll make up. And Annalise, are you available? You need your microphone?
Yes, you can pick on me.
All right. I'm not gonna pick on you, but I need another person. It's gonna be you. So I want to explain what that means when we say things like assess the deal, take control of the deal, add value. I mean, some of it's self-explanatory, but we're going to, and I don't have a whiteboard that I can put up and show you guys. So you guys are gonna have to listen to me and listen to how I'm describing this process. So 4 components. So for sake of this conversation, and I always use the same example, so some of you guys may have even heard this before, but I want to break it down and get a little more into detail. So let's say Annalise, whatever her circumstances are, I was able to negotiate buying a home from her for 100 grand. Okay. Now the home is actually worth 200,000. It needs a little bit of work, and I could probably rent it out for, let's say, $1,500 a month. So if I don't have, well, okay, so let's leave it there. So the 4 data points are: what is the cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? If you go to 4datapoints.com, I have a whole guide on how to assess a deal with the 4 data points. You can go to 4datapoints.com, download it, and then you're good to go. So those are the data points. What does it cost? 100,000. What does it cost to fix up? Another 20,000. That's going to be our rehab. Not a big rehab. And what's it going to be worth when we're done? 200,000, and then it'll rent out for 1,500 bucks. All right. What does it cost? 100 grand. What does it cost to fix up? 20 grand. What's it going to be worth when we're done? 200 grand. How much income can it generate? $1,500 a month. Now, the assumption is I have zero money. Okay, that's what this is about. So there's a few ways to do this. All right. So the first way is getting my name on that deed before I have to pay for it. It's just some paperwork. Okay. So let's go again. The 4 components of creative deal structure. 1, assess the deal. We already did that. We know we're getting it for 100 grand. We know there's $20,000 rehab. We know it's going to be worth 200,000, and we know we can rent it out for 1,500. So,
hey, yo, just a moment. We have a question in the
go ahead.
Chat real quick. Professor X wants you to. They have a land question.
What's the land question?
You have a question about land. Come on up, Professor X.
Okay. And we also, you can do this with land too, by the way. All right. So while he comes up, let me get through this exercise.
You got it.
Oh, Mark Van has subscribed to you on YouTube. That's how you can tell. That's how you can tell how few followers that I have on some of these platforms. I get 1 follower, I'd be wanting to write them a letter and send it to the house and be like, thank you for that. That really means a lot. I haven't been active on YouTube, folks. So we're just getting started on there. All right. So while Professor X is, let me get your question, Professor X, because it may be a quick one, and then I'll get back to the scenario. What's going on?
It is quick, but I want to hear the rest of the scenario. So can we?
Yeah. Okay. And anybody else with a question, feel free to come on stage, and we can get to you whenever you're ready. So The goal is to get my name on the deed before we have to pay for it, right? Remember, 4 components: assess the deal, take control, add value, exit. We already assessed the deal. We came up with the 4 data points. By the way, if you guys haven't mastered the 4 data points, don't get into real estate. Don't go past that, because 95% of new investors cannot master that, right? And those are 4 questions that are going to benefit you when you have the answers. You answer those 4 questions, it's going to tell you all of the details of the deal that you may not have known to ask about. So, component number 1, assess the deal. We did that. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? We already determined it costs 100 grand, $20,000 what it costs to fix up. It's going to be worth 200 grand when we finish. We can rent it out for 1,500. The next part is the most important part. Get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. Okay, get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. Now, I'm going to pause right there and I'm going to switch it up and go back to our scenario. So Annalise is selling me this house. And even though I'm getting it at a discount, I still got to come up with a down payment that I do not have, by the way. So I'm going to go with a traditional, the 20% down. That's typically what you're going to have to put down on an investment property. Yes, there are programs where you can put less down, but for sake of this conversation, we're going to put 20% that we don't have. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, 1, determine how much money I need, right? I go to a lender is going to say, yeah, well, LTP, which is loan to purchase, they already have that stuff posted on their website. So you can go to their website. You can see there's typically a section called maximum leverage. And in that section, you'll see terms like LTP, LTV, LTARV. So I'll go over those really quick. 2 specifically for sake of this conversation. LTP is loan to purchase. So they'll say LTP, 80%. They'll say LTV, 80%. Loan to purchase means they don't care what the value is, as long as it's worth at least what you're buying it for, right? So they're not going to give you the benefit of that discount. So I've got a discounted property I'm buying for 100,000. They don't care that it's worth 200,000. They're still only going to cover 80% of the purchase price, whatever that is. 80% of 100,000 is 80 grand. I got to come up with 20. Okay. I do not have 20 grand. So I'm dead in the water right there. Now, as a real estate investor, we get creative. All right. I already know it's going to be worth 200,000 when I'm finished. So I know that profit margin, I already know what it is. Okay. So I talk to Annalise and say, hey, look, Annalise, look, love working with you. This is great. We're in contract together. I know I'm buying your property for $100,000. I think I may have a way to put another 10 grand in your pocket. So I may be able to give you 110. Are you open to hear me out? Of course, 10 grand. She's going to say, yeah. Now it's going to delay payment for about, maybe 60 days or so. But if you deed this property over to me, then I can bring in third-party financing to go ahead and exit and put money into the rehab and these other things. Well, if Annalise doesn't know me, she's not just going to deed a property over to me. What if she deeds it over to me and I just cut her out and say, all right, well, it's mine now. What are you going to do? You got to have your documentation in place. So we use, and I know you guys in our real estate family have heard this before. So we use, first of all, we agree on 110,000. That's what I'm buying the property for, the 100 grand plus the $10,000 incentive. And I owe her that money. So before she deeds that property over to me, she's going to need some security. The security comes in the form of 2 documents: a note, which is evidence of the debt, and a security instrument, which, when registered with the county, it enforces the note. It gives the lender the power to foreclose. So just for a temporary amount of time, I'm going to reposition Annalise as the lender, because after we close, she's no longer going to be the seller. I'm going to own it. So she's going to be the lender, and I'm going to be obligated to that lender. And if I don't honor my end of the deal, then Annalise is going to be able to foreclose on the property and get it back. That's her security, hence security instrument. So look at it like this. The note is the evidence of the debt. The security instrument is what happens when you don't pay it, right? And I do this quite a bit, actually. So now let's go back. She agrees, and now we go into closing. We close on the property. When we walk away from that closing table with all the appropriate documentation signed, I now own the property. Annalise is now the lender in first lien position on that property. Now, lien position means if the property is sold or refinanced or foreclosed on, whatever, Lien position is the order that people get paid. So when you have a mortgage on a property, that first mortgage typically comes in first lien position. Then if you get a second mortgage on the property or a HELOC, home equity line of credit, behind that, that comes in second position. And then let's say you get, solar or something to where they put another lien on the property, that comes in third position. So if the property is sold, the closing company is going to pay off these liens in the order that they're positioned. All right. So now she agrees, I now own the property. So now that I own the property, I can go back to that lender and say, hey, I own a property. I want to refinance it. The LTP conversation is done because it's not a purchase. But remember, on their website, it said LTP 80%, LTV 80%. Well, LTV is loan to value. And if our value is $200,000, then this lender is going to give me 80% of the value. Well, 80% of that value is $160,000. So I own the property now, but I owe Annalise $100,000. I owe her a $10,000 incentive. And let's say I borrowed money for the rehab, throw that $20,000 in there. So I'm all in $130,000, right? $100,000, $10,000, $20,000 for the rehab. Now I don't have to borrow for the rehab. I could just pay it out of the cash out refinance proceeds, but it doesn't matter. Okay. We as we go, we determine what we have to do and then we execute based on whatever the situation is. So I'm all in 130. Now I'm not including closing costs and all this for sake of math. Okay. But let's say closing costs are in this case 5,000. All right. So now I own the property. I call that same lender, and instead of only giving me 80,000 because that's their limit for purchase, they'll fund 80% of it. They'll still fund 80%, but now it's of the value. Now our purchase was 100 grand, but the value is 200 grand. So 80% of 200 grand is $160,000. So now I got a mortgage of $160,000. And when that mortgage, those funds are wired into escrow or the closing company, right? Some states use title and escrow, some use closing attorneys. They do the same thing. When that money is wired in there, the closing company is going to say, all right, all of this stuff is going to the homeowner, but we got to pay off some stuff first. So they're going to check to see who's in first lien position. They're going to call Annalise and say, hey, we noticed you're in first lien position. What's the payoff? How much does Otis owe you? Right. And then she'll send over whatever documentation that they require and they'll pay that off. Okay. So that's 110,000. And if I borrowed 20,000 from anybody else, right, if that debt is attached to the property, they'll pay that off too. If that debt is a personal debt and not attached to the property, they won't even know about it. Right? It's just going to stay out there. And when I get the remainder of the funds from the cash out refinance, and I'll have to pay that out of pocket. Okay. But the difference here is under the first scenario, when I was approaching it the traditional way, all right, just coming up with a down payment and the whole, how you normally do it, I would have had to come up with $20,000 at least. Again, I'm not including closing costs and other fees. But when you structure it creatively and put yourself in a position where you can pay for the real estate out of your exit strategy, then you don't have to come up with that down payment because you already own it. You just haven't paid for it yet. And then you borrow the funds to make everybody whole that you borrowed from. All right. Now, in this case, I got a final mortgage of $160,000. After I paid off Annalise 100,000 plus the 10,000, that leaves that's $30,000 that's tax free after everything is paid. So that's the goal. So when we start talking about, creative acquisitions, that's one of them. Getting your name on the deed before you have to pay for it so you can pay out of your exit strategy. But there's a lot of things that you have to understand about that to determine whether or not it's going to work. Is there enough profit in it to give an incentive to the original seller to work with you? Is the rehab a small enough amount where it can still be covered in the cash out refinance along with the purchase price of the property? So it's all going to boil down to you being able to answer these 4 questions. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Because that's how you know whether or not you can do it, if there's enough meat on the bone for you to be able to do that. So I'm going to get into a seller finance situation and give you guys an example of that before. But first, is there any questions about what I just went over about paying for real estate out of your exit strategy. Also keep in mind, once you know how to do that, then the cost of the real estate is no longer a factor. Okay. I don't care whether it costs you $2,000 or $200 million. Now, there's some other things you need to know about that, but the cost of the real estate is what we're trying to overcome. What's up, Tavares?
We got Mitch Miles in here. What's up, Mitch? He said, when we go about creative financing that way, does the seller typically need your sell below market value? Typically need to sell below market value.
Yeah, if they're going to sell it and they can sell it at market value, they're not going to work with you. But if you have somebody that is in a tight situation, for example, maybe they're behind on their mortgage, right? Or maybe they got to get out of here. Maybe they got a house inherited to them and it's not being kept and it's getting a bunch of code violations and they just want to get rid of it. Or maybe they have to leave the country, for a job or something like that. That was the example that actually happened to us, fairly recently, this year before or last year or something like that. So no, but when you run the 4 data points, if they're selling it to you at market, then there's not going to be any room to do anything. There's no room to do this. So you've got to be able to answer those 4 questions. You got to buy it at enough of a discount to make sure that this works. So it all depends on the deal, right? It's not just one thing we're looking at. It's a bunch of different things that have to be in alignment to make sure that this can work, which is why I tell folks, look, I've been teaching this stuff to the general public for 4 years, 3-4 years at this level for 3 or 4 years. The reason why I teach it and people still want to join our real estate family is because once they get out there and try to do it, they understand that there's so many different variables out there that can impact how this goes for you. And if you're not prepared, you can lose a lot of money.
All right, my man. We got one more question from Dennis Webster. What's up, Dennis? How would debt to income affect the loan approval and the LTV option?
It doesn't. So we use asset-based lending, which is the nickname is hard money lending. And they look at 3 things. They look primarily at you and your experience, the entity that you're using to close, and the property itself. So they have restrictions in there that protect them with respect to how much equity is left into the deal when it's all said and done. So they don't look at your debt to income ratio like if you went to Chase or Bank of America or one of the conventional lenders that sell loans back to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So it doesn't matter what your debt to income ratio is because you're not closing in your own name. You're closing in your entity's name. Professor X, you still with us?
I am.
Do you sound discouraged? I
She
am. What's up? Can we cheer you up?
I hope so. So
Come on, Professor.
Go ahead.
I don't always sound like this, but thank you for letting me up. So I have actually hit you up on Instagram about this. There's a plot of land that is not too far away from me, and I'd like to take possession of it. It's assessed value is maybe $650, owned by a very old woman, and she keeps putting for sale signs on it. And they've gone up and come down for a number of years, and Habitat for Humanity is starting to build on my block. But I want to make sure that they don't get that land. I do not want them to put houses on the land. I'd prefer to use it as my farm to grow food. And I am looking at, yes. So I'm looking at, doing this the correct way, but are there other ways in which I could go about acquiring the land? I've checked for tax liens. That is not the case. And I don't think it's going to be taxes or maybe $100.
Let's run the 4 data points on it. What does the land cost? What would it cost you to acquire it? You said she had it for sale, right?
Yes, I've reached out to her. I'm still waiting for a call back, but given the information I've received from the assessor's office, the assessed value to do 10%, $650. So I'm guessing it's about a $6,500 plot.
You're saying 650, 650,000?
No.
$650?
Yeah, that's the assessed value of the land.
Wait, $650, 650.00?
Yes, like the taxes on it are only $76.
Wow.
Okay, and so you said it was for sale, and forgive me, I for being confused. You said it was for sale, but how much was it for sale for?
I'm still waiting for her to get back to me. I called her yesterday. She hasn't returned my call, but trying to figure out, the best way to go about acquiring the land. I mean, would you just pay it outright or,
Well, it
um,
depends. It depends on how much it cost. So if it's worth, what do you think it's worth? If you just have to throw a number out there, what would you say? You
I
don't have,
mean,
you don't have to be right. Just
I'm looking at the assessments of actual real properties in the area, and it does align with the 10% bestowed upon with the assessed value. So assessed value here is 10% of actual. So I mean, I would say that, I could see it going for 6,500.
$6,500. Okay.
But
Uh,
the issue is Habitat for Humanity down the street because they're buying up lots of land. So that may dramatically um, hike up the cost of it. I mean, it's all the way down the block, but it's not a impossibility.
okay. So a lot of it depends on how much you have liquid and what they're selling it for. If you got $10,000 in the bank and she's selling it for 6,500, I would just write a check for 6,500. But you also got to look at what's the highest and best use of the land. So, for example, you said you wanted to grow food, right?
Yes, I need more land for sure.
Okay. So, okay, what does it cost? 6,500. What does it cost to fix up? We're not fixing it up. We're just growing food, correct?
Yes, I mean it will need like probably a gate, fence or what have you. But
Okay. So if we're just so I don't
I mean, and then like fruit trees are not expensive, but they're not cheap.
okay. Don't you just put the seeds in the ground or you gotta I'm not a farmer, so I don't
No,
know.
no.
I thought you
I
just drop
swear people
seeds in the
think that's how
ground.
it works.
Okay.
Oh, if only. If
Okay. All right. I'm
only.
sorry. I thought you dropped seeds in the ground and you're like, all right, see you in 7 years. Okay. So you actually plant already big trees in there and then you just maintain them. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and there's, I do make compost and that's part of it.
Oh, you wanted them nature folks, huh?
Like, the cost of everything is about to go up. So I'd really like to, get chickens and get some greens in the ground and what have you. And that's perfect amount of land for that.
You know what? We joke, but you're that's going to be in high demand. I tell people, look, that's one of the things I tell folks: look, learn how to grow your own food, even if it's in your backyard or whatever it is, because the world is getting a lot worse, and those who can grow their own food are going to be a leg up on the rest of us. Okay, so from an investment standpoint, I would just buy it outright. There's not much I can do creative because in that particular situation there's nothing you can do to add value to the land if you're not building on it, right? So I would just write a check outright. Now, what are you going to be doing with the food when you grow it? Are you going to be selling it or giving it away?
Dude, that's where I wanted to go with you too, because in terms of agricultural like loans, I wonder if there's a way to do that to beefing up this process. Because I mean, the less work I have to physically do, the better. It
Yeah.
would be great to have more money in hand in order to, actually hire people to do this work. But I would love to be able to sell the
Okay.
excess.
Okay, so now from the real estate side, that's probably not going to be my area of expertise because what you're doing, the profit is not coming from the real estate itself because there is none. It's just land. The profit is coming from the business model attached to the real estate. So now you're in a different category, right? Now, I'm an entrepreneur too, so I can help with the business side of things. But even I would bring in consultants for something like that, right? Um, I- so I'm probably not going to be much help here. But as far as the land goes, if there's any profitability, even if it's not from the land and it's from the business model, then I would look at the owner now, the seller, and see if there's a partnership agreement that you can go into to give her a portion of the proceeds from the business model that you have attached to the land. That's where my mind goes first. But then on the flip side of that is if it's for a small enough amount, the acquisition cost, 6,500 bucks, and you have that, I would just pay it outright and not have to split proceeds with anybody. So the creative stuff only comes when you don't have the resources to take it down the traditional way. But at that price point, you probably do. And even if you didn't, um, I'd probably look at the SBA to see what programs that they have. But I would even go with a consumer credit site like lendingclub.com or Best Egg or one of those. They'll give you 40 grand just based on your credit profile. So it's not asset-based lending or hard money. But with 40 grand, you can buy the land and put things in motion to be able to implement that business model. And then you can replace that financing with long term with a USDA loan or with what do you call it? More permanent or with an SBA loan and pay the consumer lender back out of that. But other than that, if you're not building on the land, 'cause I'm a real estate guy. I couldn't even look. My yard is where plants come to die. That's where that's I got like I'm not good at keeping those things alive. So I would bring in consultants. I would look at the USDA to see what programs they have. And for the business model I have attached to it, I would look at the SBA to see what programs they have because you may be able to dovetail or double dip, right? That's probably the best advice that I could give. Sorry, I wish I had a more straightforward answer, but yeah, it's not my area of expertise.
No, that was a great contribution.
It kind of was, right? I was a little proud of myself too. I'm sorry.
Honestly, I think I'm just hyping you up because I think you're cute. But
Oh,
yeah, I
hey,
appreciate you.
hold on. Did we record that? Did you guys get that? Does there I'm just somebody's dad now, so we take a compliment. Look, I'll take a compliment anywhere I can get it. But if you have any issues, if you run into something, I have a lot of people that are in different spaces, and I can refer you to somebody. Just shoot me an email, and I can put you in line with somebody that is actively doing that somewhere in the country, most likely. Amen.
Amen.
Yes. Ishman, what's going on?
We have a question from Terry too, Professor X. Can we get to that?
Yeah, go. Is that the can you lease or rent small sections to others?
Yeah. You address that?
Yeah, so you can do that.
Okay.
You can do whatever you once you own the land, you can do whatever you want, right? You can lease it to other folks. You can what do you call it? Subdivide it. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. It's pretty much up to you. But she is Professor X is in that space. So, if you're gonna lease the land to other folks, I guess that'd be pretty easy. I don't I'm hesitating because I'm making sure that I'm not missing something that's really, really important. I'm thinking whether zoning would influence what you can do with the land in that particular municipality. But as long as yeah, I don't see any reason you couldn't. It's your land. You can do whatever you want to it. You probably can't grow weed on it, depending on where you live, but you guys get the picture. Ishman, you with us? Ishman going once. Ishman going twice. All right. So let's look at what is it? It's 9:34, so we got 26 minutes. Let's look at seller financing. So seller financing is you're using the same documents that we use in our initial scenario, right? And this is seller financing is really, really easy, right? There's some things you need to look at when you're in a seller financing deal to make sure that you don't get in trouble. Okay. Now I had a deal. I told you guys about this before. We were in Atlanta, Georgia. And so there's a city called Duluth and a city called Norcross. And there was a gentleman that was leaving the country. He had 3 properties he wanted to sell. And so we bought them. And one of the properties I thought was a non-performing property because I glanced at the comps and I was like, all right, I'll take it. Maybe I can rent it out or do something. And it was in really good condition too. But I didn't think that I was going to be able to add a lot of value. It was a part of a condo association, and I don't work with condo associations. I hate them. I know hate is a strong word, but it is what it is. And so I figured that's a dud. But the other 2 are profitable, so maybe I'll just keep this dud. So we acquired the other 2 using asset-based lending, hard money. And for the third one, we seller financed it. So he wanted $95,000 for it. I think the comps, and I don't know what comps I was looking at, but maybe I didn't have my coffee that morning. The comps were only at like 110, right? So with closing costs and everything, there's not much profit in there. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll seller finance it for 95,000. I give him 1,000, right? And then I seller finance 94,000. Then I couldn't get a hold of the guy because he was like out of the country, and I'm like, look, man, I'm trying to pay you, what we agreed per month, and I was only going to seller finance it for 6 months, and then I figured, I'll sell it or whatever, right? But I was going to get him all his. He had a balloon payment in there, and a balloon payment means you can amortize the payment, right, over 30 years, right, and that determines what your monthly payment is. But a balloon payment means the entire balance is due at a particular time. And in our situation, it was 6 months. All right. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to add a lot of value, but the other two were going to be profitable enough to where I could exit out of that condo property, even if I had to come in with a few grand. All right. Now, we just implemented a note, which was my promise to pay, documented, evidence of the debt, and then a security instrument, which made him a lien holder on that property. So if you would have, after we closed, if you looked at public record, you would have saw James Street Capital, my investment company, owning it. And then you would have saw him as the lender. And if he had it in an LLC or whatever, then whatever his entity would have been the lender on it. Okay. Well, 6 months later, I didn't do anything to the property, by the way. And 6 months later, probably even before that, I'll say about 4 months later, I looked at the comps, and the comps were at like 180, and I only owed 94 on this thing. But because there's an HOA and the HOA didn't have their business together, and the lender looked at the HOA as what they called insolvent, right? Like they're going to run out of money or whatever the issue was, there were restrictions on how much I could take out. So I was only able to take out 55% of the value. I had it appraised twice. I had it appraised at 220 the first time. That blew my mind. So 55% of that or whatever they allowed me was going to be enough to pay off everything. Had it appraised again, because when they told me I couldn't get the full value because of how the HOA was, I went to another lender and had it appraised a week later, because you got to buy an appraisal every time you switch lenders. The new appraiser appraised it at 180, which is a lesson by itself, right? There's a $40,000 swing, and there's no new information. They all use the exact same information. So the appraisal community is not always my best friend. So I ended up just doing a cash out refinance with the original lender. And I think I did a cash out refinance for like 119, right? Ended up paying him back. I think I had about 12 or 13,000 when it was all said and done. And then we went our separate ways. But when we're talking about seller financing, this is the point I want to hit home. And this is a scenario I want to give to you guys. You got to be really careful and run the 4 data points. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? You got to run that no matter what, because there's a lot of shady investors out there that will want to get rid of non-performing assets or assets that are non-performing according to their buy box, their investment criteria. So they'll make it really easy for new investors to be able to acquire the property. They'll seller finance it to them. The property will be cash flowing. And to the new investor, it's like, man, I got into this property. It's cash flowing. I didn't even have to put any money down. And I'm reaping the benefits of, expensing the property taxes and, all of these other benefits of owning. But they don't look at the entire note. They don't look at what they're obligated to. And what I've seen out there is the original seller, the shady investor, once they offload that property and they reposition themselves as the lender because they allow the person to sell or finance it, then for the first year or two, everything is good. Then the new investor gets a call out of the blue and says, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going great. I got a tenant in there. I'm cash flowing I went up on the rent, last year. So I'm cash flowing about $500 a month. It's all good. Now the shady investor says, all right, cool. Sounds good. I'm happy for you. When are you going to pay the balance? Your balloon payment is next month. So you go back and say, oh man, I didn't realize there was a balloon payment in there, but no worries. I'll just refinance, get a new mortgage, and the new mortgage will pay off the existing debt, and I'm good to go. But they didn't run the 4 data points. Data point number 3 is, what's it going to be worth when I'm done? And if they would have done that, they would have realized that they're not going to be able to add enough value, because remember, lenders aren't going to give you 100% of what it's worth. They'll only give you a percentage of what it's worth. And it's about 80 or 75, depending on what lender, in most cases, with few exceptions. So 75% of the value needs to be enough to pay off that balloon payment. And in many cases, it's not, because the new investor did not run the 4 data points, did not see that there wasn't enough profit in the value add side, right? Make it worth more than you bought it for, to be able to pay off all the debts. So now the shady investors got them dead to rights. So the shady investor will say something like, okay, I'll tell you what. I understand that, maybe there was some confusion. So we'll go ahead and we'll renegotiate, right? We'll renegotiate the debt. So the new investor says, oh, good. But you'd already told that shady investor that you cash flowing $500 a month. So what do you think the new interest rate is going to be? It's going to be significantly higher. If I was a shady investor, I'd make sure it cut into all your profits, or I would just foreclose on it. All right. But those are the choices you're left with: renegotiate the deal or get foreclosed on, because you didn't run the 4 data points and you didn't know everything to look at. So when somebody in my real estate family, and we call the people that are in our mentorship program, we call it a real estate family because we treat it just like a family. Sometimes we go way above and beyond what a company should do to make sure that somebody's taken care of. So we teach how to look at everything. The whole purpose of the 4 data points is for people to protect themselves when I'm not in their presence, right? And if you're not doing that, whether it's seller financing or doing something creative, you can get in a lot of trouble. Now, I'm just talking about the 1 to 4 units, right? Single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, primarily because they're all valued the same way. They're valued based on what similar properties are selling for. Once you get up to the multifamily commercial, it's a completely different ballgame. Those in our real estate family that are doing multifamily commercial, you guys already know that it is a completely different ballgame, right? So on the seller financing side, seller financing is great, but you've got to look at everything. You got to read your documentation. You got to see what you're obligated to on the note, right? Because if you don't, you can get in a lot of trouble. Now, on the slide, is there any questions about that? Because I want to get into one more strategy that may be a little more complicated. I teach subject to and all that stuff too. I don't do subject to long term. There's just too much anxiety. There's just easier ways to do it. But subject to, seller financing, lease options, lease purchases, dovetailing strategies together. I do all kinds of, just about everything you can do, we'll teach. Even if we don't have it in our curriculum, if our real estate family comes up on a situation and we need to, it's my job to teach them how to survive no matter what the conditions are, right? So we may have to get really creative and do some out of the ordinary stuff. Let's see. Go ahead.
So we do have a question. Let me see here. Did you already need money for the fencing, laying down gravel for always? Okay, so with Milu B, I think I pronounced that right. Says a specific website that's your that you see when.
Tavares, you're breaking up. Say again.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Sorry about that. I believe her name was Milu B.
Yep.
Sorry if I blew that. Hi, Otis. Is there a specific website that's your go-to that you use when looking to buy land to build residential units?
No, there isn't. Typically, people come to me. Now they just, they'll hit me up and say, hey, I got this 15 acres here, the 30 acres here. Somebody hit me up with a good deal. I just didn't have the liquidity to take it down. And it wasn't a lot. I was just, at that moment in time, my liquidity was spread amongst a bunch of different projects. So no, they just come to me. There's not a particular website. Once people know what you do, you'll start attracting people to you. And I invest all over the country. So one website probably wouldn't encompass all of the deals in the places that I go. So no, there's not a particular website, but you can talk to a real estate agent in that particular county that you're looking to do business. Just give them all your information. Just let them know, look, if something comes up like this is my buy box, let me know. And you should be able to find something.
Hey, yo, couple things, man, just to reset. If you can't hear me or too loud, let me know.
No, you're good.
But first, just want to invite everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link is at the top if you are in our Clubhouse room. We are simulcasting, so you can be watching us on Facebook or Instagram, or you could already be watching this on YouTube. But if you're not, just want to remind y'all to check us out on YouTube at 4 Data Points Academy, at 4 Data Points Academy on YouTube. So check us out there and subscribe. So as I said, we are simulcasting. However, we started on Clubhouse. So many of you are watching and listening to us on Clubhouse. So welcome everybody. I want to give a special shout out to our newest real estate family member. We always like to call it our real estate family because, you know, it's like family. I don't, your cousin comes to your house on Thanksgiving. I guess that's how it feels. But anyway, Terry Walker, what's up, girl? She is here in the audience here in Clubhouse. She is our newest real estate family member. So very
Is that
proud.
Terry? Is that the Terry?
That is Terry.
Amen.
Yeah, that's right. So honored to be part of your journey, Terry, and looking forward to see you out there investing and doing all sorts of stuff. So, anybody else? Go ahead, Sparks.
Was that you texting me?
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, my man, you got to put your name in there, bro. I got this number coming up. I'm like, who is this? How can they see this? Right on, my man. Good looking out.
Somebody's
All good.
watching me. Go ahead, Jay.
Also, we will be in Houston on February 22nd. I feel like we always go to Houston around your birthday, but we will be in Houston February 22nd. So come on out. You know, one of the things that I really appreciate about our in-person events is, you know, look, there's all sorts of real estate events and seminars and all sorts of stuff, and they all promise all sorts of things. But typically when you go to these things, they spend 95% of the time trying to convince you that, you know, real estate investing is going to give you some sort of lifestyle, or, you know, showing you pictures of cars and all this sort of stuff. And only 5% are really actually teaching you anything. And the whole purpose is just to try to get you to, you know, to buy the next thing. And really at our events, it's all teaching the entire time. It's all teaching.
Yes.
And so you walk away with some tools. And the idea is that you leave with some knowledge, some actionable knowledge and tools that you can go and do something with. And so, you know, I want to invite you all to come to our Houston event. I will put the link in the chat. Somebody want to put that in there? It is on our webpage. So I'll put the link there so y'all can come and join us in Houston. Is that it? I think that's all the announcements I have. Anything I missed, though?
Nope, that is it. Hold on 1 second. I got hold on. Come here, buddy. You gotta wait. All right.
While he's doing that. So I gotta remember we're simulcasting. So if you are on some of these other platforms where I don't have the ability to put a link on, you know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, the link or the way you get tickets to our event is on our website. The website is 4 data points, the number 4 datapoints.com. The number 4 data points, all one word, .com. So hope to see y'all in Houston. Let's get it.
Yeah,
I got
man.
you, Jay. I put the link in the chat for everybody. So come on out, register.
Yes. That you make a good point, actually. We have I go to some of those. Sometimes I'll get the multifamily postcards that say come to our free seminar, right? It's like right up the street. And I'm going to those things because I'm looking at hiring people from some of those other programs if their values are in alignment, right? Like if it's just a money grab situation, I don't want anything to do with that. But I'll go, and you know, I talk to people there, and I don't tell them what I do, right? I don't go there trying to get people to join our program or any of that stuff. I genuinely just talk to people and kind of see where they're at with it. And you know, a lot of these things, they just talk about like what you can do, like, excuse me, the potential that, you know, a real estate investing career can have. And, you know, some of the things that I hear, it's like, you know, I want to tell people just because something is possible doesn't mean it's likely. And a lot of the lifestyles that they focus on is like, you can have financial freedom and all this, it's catchphrases, right? And I'm like, but man, you gotta be honest with folks. So when I do an event, I don't want anybody to ever be able to say that, right? Like there has to be value there. Like you have to know how to do something on your own when you leave the event. So this event in Houston, and this is typically the format that we get into. We don't go over every real estate investing strategy. I only got you for a day, so I'm go over everything that I can. You ain't gonna retain any of that stuff anyway. But I can teach you how to assess a deal. I can teach you how to flip a single family, right? single family duplex, fourplex, right? I can teach you about seller financing. I can teach you how to protect yourself. And then I can give you the tools to take with you so you don't have to remember all of that stuff. I have actual curriculum that I can give you. So when you leave, you can be effective. But I'm banking on you actually going out there and doing the stuff. Because when you do the stuff, then you see how big the real estate investing world really is. And then you appreciate a mentor when you come back and schedule a call with me. So if you haven't experienced it, you don't know what it is yet. So it's like, all right, well, $5,000 is a lot of money. That's our entry level, right? $5,000 is a lot of money to somebody that doesn't understand real estate investing. They don't understand the value yet. They don't understand that $5,000 will cost you $30,000 somewhere else. So the goal is to make sure that people can be effective, get out there in the real world, try it. Some people we had Brandon said he was coming to me on Clubhouse, listening to me on Clubhouse all the time. And he got 8 or 9 doors. I think 8 doors just from listening to me on Clubhouse, according to him. And it was just him coming back week after week, asking questions, going out there executing and all this stuff. So it was so that's the goal, right? The goal is to make sure that you guys can actually do something with the stuff. And then when you do need help, then you appreciate what it is I do. All right. I don't like to convince people that they need me. You ever been in a relationship and you got to convince the other person how much they need you? Spoiler alert, the relationship is over. All right. Anyway. All right, so we are on. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up on. I think Instagram only gives us an hour, so I'm gonna wrap it up on Instagram in a few minutes. The seller financing. Just make sure if you guys are getting into a seller financing deal, you already know how to master the 4 data points. If you don't know how to master the 4 data points, I'm teaching you for free. You just go to the website, download it, and do it. Practice it. Pick a random address. When we're doing some of our virtual classes in the evening, and I need kind of a case study or an example, I don't have anything pre-planned. I just open up Google Maps, I zoom way out, and I just zoom into any part of the country, and I keep zooming in until I pick a random house in a random city, and then we run the 4 data points on that. And I encourage people to do the same thing. Run the 4 data points, find a piece of property, ask yourself, okay, what does it cost? Well, if you're just finding a random property, it's probably not for sale. So that translates into what am I willing to pay? Data point number 1, what is the cost or what am I willing to pay? Data point number 2, what does it cost to fix up? Data point number 3, what's it going to be worth when I'm done? Data point number 4, how much income can it generate? We don't look at them in that order. Data point number 3 is the one I go to first. Then I go to data point number 4. Why do I go to data point number 3? Why do I want to know how much it's going to be worth when I'm done? Because that's going to tell me a lot about the deal as far as what I can do, what I can't do. If I know a property is going to be worth $100,000 when I finish with it, I would go cheap, so I don't have to do. I still need 6 credits to graduate junior college, so I use really easy examples so I don't have to do math. If I know a property is going to be worth $100,000 when I finish with it, I already know that if I do a cash out refinance, I'm only going to get 75% of that or 80% of that. Okay. So what else does that tell me? If I know, let's say 80%, if I know 80% of $100,000 is $80,000, I can put that into my calculator, my payment calculator, and determine what it's going to cost me a month. So I write that down. That's how much my monthly obligation is. I also know based on that information that I have to buy it and rehab it for less than that 80% amount if I want to get all my money back out of the deal. So that's some important information. Once I know how much that monthly obligation is, I can go to data point number 4, how much income can it generate? And I can compare the 2 numbers. Okay, it'll rent out for $1,500, but this $80,000 mortgage is only going to cost me about $900 a month. Okay, so I know how much I'm going to cash flow. I do those 2 data points first because if those don't pan out, I don't even have to look at the rest. And the goal is to go ahead and review these deals on a napkin and not have to get committed to them to find out that they're not going to work for you, or they're not going to be in your buy box or your investing criteria. So if you can master those 4 questions, then you're going to be ahead of 95% of the people getting into real estate investing. And folks, there's people losing money everywhere. Now, if you're going to be a real estate investor, you're going to lose money at some point, right? Because there's too many things beyond your control. But what we want to do is control the controllables, right? We want to control the controllables. We want to mitigate risk. When people come into our program, we don't focus on right away. Let's just see, sky's the limit. How much money can we make? Let's do 1,000 units. The first thing I teach them is how to protect themselves. and how to protect their financial future. Because we have some folks in our real estate family that are of a certain age, right, older, they don't have the risk tolerance of somebody in their 20s or 30s. They can bounce back. Some people can't. So I got to make sure people know how to protect themselves first and don't get into something that they can't get out of. You folks on Clubhouse, I'm going to end the live. Thank you guys for joining us on Clubhouse. I'm going to end that live video and see what happens over there. You guys,
we got a question?
Go ahead. We're still on YouTube and Facebook. So,
all right, cool.
So let's go. What's the question?
Milu B again. My son's birthday is on the 22nd. When and where will your next event be? The Philadelphia event was incredibly informative. I gained so much valuable knowledge and truly appreciate the time and effort you put into it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Did she go to, was she in Philly? Did she say
Philly? Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, shout out to her. Yeah. The next one, I don't know. I don't know. So I may do, it's getting harder. It's getting harder to do.
DC, Baltimore.
I think DC. I think
Baltimore.
DC, maybe Dallas, maybe Florida, maybe, I don't know, maybe New York, Chicago. I don't know. So for those that don't know, we were hitting like, God, we were doing like, it seemed like a city a month. We did Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Charlotte, DC, New York, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Long Beach, LA. We did Oakland, we did Philadelphia, and some of these places we hit multiple times. Now I think we may do a live event one every quarter, maybe. So I don't know what the next one's going to be. We'll see how Houston goes. But yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I like to do them. I like to do them in places where I either have real estate or, kind of like to hang out, but we'll see what happens with it. We'll see. Come and do a, but if you guys are in our database, you guys will know, you guys in our database get first right of refusal. If you are not in our database, you can get in our database by texting the word 4 data points, the number 4, DATAPOINTS to 85100. As soon as you text, your phone number comes up on my desk. Nothing else, just your phone number, right? You're in our database, so I can text you and things like that. You should get an auto response, so I have your name and email address. But sometimes we'll go ahead and give out free stuff, give out free lessons to those folks. So if you guys want to stay tuned, just go to our website or text that to 85100. We'll be good. And let me know if where y'all want me to come. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. That being said, I think we're about to wrap up. Yeah, I think we're going to wrap up.
Hey,
go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to, I think you said you were going to go over a scenario, but I wanted to, I think a lot of times when we talk, I know I always get on the soapbox, right? A lot of times when we talk about using this particular strategy, that it sounds like we're saying, hey, this is a great way to buy property if you have absolutely no money. And I think a lot of times well, let me just say this. I think this is a fantastic strategy for people who have lots of resources or have resources, I should just say. And there's people who are in our program who are doing this. And I wanted to just talk through some a real scenario of why it's such a good reason for if you have resources to use that particular strategy. So one of the things that you want to do that sounds pretty obvious is you want to buy a property for as little as possible, right? That sounds obvious. So is much as you can below market value. So that could present a problem. So let's say that market value on a property is $300,000, and you have created such a great deal that you're able to get it for $80,000, and that's significantly less. Or actually, let's say it's more. Let's say it's $350,000, and you're able to negotiate, $80,000. But it needs a $120,000 rehab. Okay. So the problem that presents is, right, we're usually using hard money. Okay. And the problem that presents is a hard money lender is not going to give you $120,000 for a property you only paid $80,000 for. Right. And I'm going to do that. So if you wanted to get a loan, what they would do is whatever they would make you pay the difference. So 120 minus 80, what is that, 40? So $40,000 plus whatever your normal down payment would be is what you'd have to come up with, right? So that you wouldn't want to do that. But if you had some resources, here's what you could do. Okay, and we have several people who are in our real estate family who are doing this. Let's imagine you got a HELOC. Okay, so you had a HELOC and you've got $130,000 for a HELOC. So real life situation, literally real life situation. Got $130,000 for a HELOC. Have another $110,000 in business credit, and then another $40,000, I think, maybe it's even a little bit more in personal credit. And there's maybe $40,000 in cash. So lots of resources available. And remember the cost of the rehab is $120,000. Cost of the property is all right. Well, how about instead of actually the cost of the property was like 75. So how about instead of paying you 75, we'll pay you 80, except we're not going to pay you 80 right up front. Okay. We're going to pay you. So we're going to give you $5,000 more, right? Which is fantastic news for you, but we're going to give you that $5,000 in 3 months. Now though, is we are going to put some money in your pocket. Okay. We're going to give you $15,000 right now. Okay. And so here you go. Here's 15 grand. Got that in your pocket. All right. Now we own the property. Okay. So let's talked about
James, you're breaking up. Yeah. So James is breaking up. Yeah. So I think I know what he's getting at, and he's just talking about another way to work that. So when I tell you guys that there's a lot that you have to look at, there's something called asymmetrical risk reward. So that works on both sides, right? Asymmetrical risk reward means we're not going to risk a lot just to make a little bit. Same with lenders. They're not going to give you $60,000 for a rehab for a property you bought for $500. It's too lopsided. Now, there are exceptions. Some lenders will. There are lenders out there that will, but you've got to understand, you got to look at everything. They're going to look at everything, right? So, what is that? Okay. So that's just one of the things you have to note. When you guys are out there, buying tax deeds and doing all these things where you can get houses for really cheap, most people run into that, and then they find out when it's too late that now they're just stuck with an obligation. They can't get financing for it. There's not enough development in the neighborhood for them to be able to add enough value to leverage that value. So now they're stuck with a dilapidating property, and now they're getting code enforcement notices and all types of stuff.
If we want to.
Wait, James, can you hear me? Yeah, I think James, you're breaking up. You're breaking up bad, man. We haven't heard anything for the last minute or so. Cool. Yeah, so give it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just explaining, asymmetrical risk reward is what James was talking about. A lender's not going to risk a whole lot just to make a little bit. And as investors, we should be doing the same thing. So running the 4 data points is going to protect you from getting in a situation like that. And also, just because we talk about buying money with zero capital and doing all this, those are just strategies that I teach people in order for them to survive. It's not something you want to build a business model around, because there's not enough water in that well for you to make a career out of it, right? Just because you're acquiring property for zero capital, first of all, how'd you get in that conversation? So you got to be putting money into marketing, because it's a numbers game. The more conversations you have, the more success you can have doing something creative. And it's also very competitive when you start getting into the creative stuff. You got wholesalers out there that are paying $20,000 and $30,000 a month in marketing. Are you really competing with those guys? So the first thing I always say, your greatest asset is always going to be the education. If I got $5,000 in my hand, that $5,000 is going to go a long way in my hand. And I wouldn't even put it into real estate. I would just put it into marketing and letting more people know about what I do and generating more conversations so that I can execute some of this stuff if I don't have the capital or the liquidity to be able to, move the way I normally move. So when we talk about seller financing and dovetailing, which means putting multiple strategies together and doing all these creative things. You can't build a business off that just starting out, but you can have it in your toolbox for when things go south or when you have an obstacle you have to overcome in the course of normal business. So I really want to highlight that. It's my job to teach a real estate investor how to survive in any condition. I don't just gravitate towards, let me show you the BRRRR method. Let me show you tax deeds or tax certificates or equity share or private equity. Or I don't just teach one particular thing, because there isn't one particular thing that works 100% of the time in 100% of the places. I teach everything, which is why our program is ongoing, because you're going to evolve. You come in as a beginner, then you're going to be intermediate. You're going to be doing bigger and different things. Then you're going to be advanced. You may want to scale up an asset class. And I know that I've trained you all the way up. So by the time you get there, and you don't have to pay more. Once you're in our program, you're in our program. Then once you get there, then you can start using some of these things that you didn't know to use when you were a newbie, when you were just starting out. So the point I want to hit home is, just because you can acquire real estate with no money out of pocket does not mean that there's enough of that out there for you to base your career on just that. But it is important that you have it in your toolbox, so when things go left in this market or whatever market you're in, you can survive even without the liquidity that you need. All right. But it's ongoing learning. So get the education first. That is something that they can never take away from you. When you have the education, you can come up with different ways to generate income in the real estate investing space without approaching it the traditional way. All right. If you have the education, you could put programs together and go teach the stuff, right? And do workshops and build up your network that way. And I've got a couple of students in our real estate family that I'm considering franchising out to, because I know they're proficient. They share our values, and I'm willing to help them build their business up so they can teach this stuff and do workshops and all that other stuff, because I know they're going to be legit and I know they're not going to embarrass the brand. So I know we beat that horse to death, but look, it's not a money grab for us, right? It just isn't. So most of the mileage that I get is based off my reputation. That is the most valuable thing that I have, and I'm going to preserve that, which is why we don't scale up prematurely. We got ways I can 10x my income. I got plenty of ways to do that, but at what cost? I got into it to create real estate investors, and I wanted to demystify these complicated strategies for the average everyday person that wants to change their quality of life. And I do that for real. And I put a lot of work in to do that. I put a lot of time and effort into making sure that people are taken care of and nobody's out there trying to figure out what to do next. Because once your name is aligned with my name, and look, it's on both of us. I'm gonna stay in the fight as long as you do. You can quit anytime you want, but I always got to create a space for people to come back, get training without charging them anything else. So that's our story. Ellis, what's going on, brother? Welcome. We just about to wrap up, but it's good to see your face as always. You folks that are down there with those red tickets, join the room. Join the room. Go to our website. Download the 4 data points guide. Start practicing. I'm telling you, the world is not getting any better anytime soon. So, Ellis, man, tell everybody where you're from and what you do before we get out of here.
Oh, hey, Otis. Sorry, I missed the whole broadcast, but
It's all good.
I'm in Southern California. I've been doing real estate for about 3 decades now. I specialize in creative acquisition. I specialize in looking for properties that have title issues, and I clear them up in many different ways. If I can do that, I usually can get it at a 80% to 50% discount. I also, I'm a guest lecturer at UCLA where I talk about investing in debts, because there's many ways to approach a real estate issue, whether it's on the debt side or the equity side. I appreciate everything that Otis has done to build up this community. Both Otis and James are freaking consistent with doing this. And I used to do a podcast many years ago, and the grind of doing that consistently, that's why hats off to you guys. You've been doing it forever. So I really, really want to give you your props for that. And hopefully you guys will take advantage of I think you have an event coming up in Houston, right? I think
Yes.
that anybody that is in that area and on the fence, I think you should definitely take advantage of that. It's very rare to have somebody as dedicated as Otis and James to give good, solid information, which is essential, as you know, Otis, for a good foundation in this business. And then you're going to be part of their community, part of their family. So yeah, that's my endorsement for both you guys. And any way I could support your community, your family, or anyone else that can tap into my experience, because I've done a lot of things wrong, but I've done a few things right over the years too as well. So I'm happy to share that.
Right on, man. And then can you put your link to? Do you still have your group, right? Your meetup group for investors by investors?
Yeah, I founded that in 2007. I still have leaders running that in Southern California, and I think we have one in Kansas City that's been running it for a while now. If you look at my my page, I think I have it on my link tree, but I'll post it up in the room real quick.
Amen. All right, that's 2 compliments. Look, somebody called me handsome today, and then I just got that endorsement from Ellis, so I could quit now. I'm good. That's my day right there. 2 compliments. Look, I can ride with that. For you guys that are looking to learn about real estate investing, everything's on our website, 4datapoints.com. Time is the most valuable thing you have, so I hope we were able to honor that by sharing information with you that you can actually use. We will be here again on Tuesday, 9 o'clock California time. We're going to start at about 8:45 on Clubhouse, and then we'll start simulcasting on the different platforms by 9 o'clock. And then we will get into some heavy real estate stuff. That being said, we are out. What part of Louisiana? Okay. All right. Let me see. Let me just make sure there ain't no more questions. All right. I don't know. We may come to DC. I don't think we're going to come to Louisiana. There's just not enough people out there that follow us in Louisiana. But
DC is nice.
Yeah, DC. We've been to DC 3 times already. Yeah,
let's make it 4.
Yeah, DC.
I've been trying to tell him, man. He over here tripping.
Bro, we've been there 3 times. I guess
I have not. So you were not. I was not privy to the 4 data points at the time. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So technically, you weren't here. If I don't know about it, if I wasn't there, you technically were not here.
Well,
you
look,
may have been there, but your spirit may have been there. But technically, you have no, you don't own real estate in DC until you actually come to DC again. So
look,
yeah.
we went to DC. The last time we went to DC, it was cold. It was cold.
Well, then don't come during the cold season, man.
No, but
there.
James came and he ain't had no jacket because he lives in Columbia.
Oh,
so he out there in a rayon button-up shirt.
talking. Mira, look at me.
Talking about hurry up. And then we decided to walk to the spot from our hotel.
Yeah, no.
Right, he was out there. I thought it was going to be like the Donner Party out there with James. Anyway.
James, you need to look at like a weather channel before you start packing. Like when you're coming to the States, like you got to look at it or stop at a store.
Oh man, he had the rayon silk shirt, no t-shirt.
Oh yeah,
no t-shirt.
The wind blew right through it, right?
I think we walked by somebody and we heard somebody yell like, "You're gonna die, dude." Oh man. Yeah, so we used to do, before we did it as kind of like how we do it now, I would do these boardroom meetings all over the country, and I'd max it out at maybe 12 people, and then we'd sit in there 8 hours and we would just hash out, like I would teach them everything that I could in the real estate investing space in that one meeting. And those were really, really fun, man. And it was just me. It wasn't like me, James, and the folks we take with us. It wasn't all that. It was just bam, boardroom, and at some of these hotels. And I had a good time doing that, man. That was really dope. So I got to see a lot of the country by doing that. But we're going to scale up, and we're at that point now where we're getting bigger. I'm just very careful in how we do that. I don't want to sacrifice the integrity of what we're doing just to scale up. So we're very careful with that. But that being said, oh, Kelly, I see you came up. Did you have a question, Kelly, or did you already ask it?
Actually, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, hey Otis, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, y'all.
Hey.
Hey. So as y'all know, I'm very well versed in automotive. That's my space. Like 1000%, I got you. However, after listening to all of you wonderful people and meeting y'all and everything, I have finally decided to venture into real estate.
Amen.
I finally decided to do it.
All right now.
Yeah, like right now. So I'm sitting in the car and I ran out because I saw this room open. So this is real life, like right now.
Yes.
So
Let's do
Orange County, New York. So this is New York State.
Mm-hmm.
They have tax deed properties, right? And so I had to fill out this Orange County deed parcel official bid / purchaser document. This is the first time I'm ever filling out anything like this or even doing this. So like my heart is tight pounding, right? Because I could do a $300,000 car, but I can't seem to do a $500 tax deed. So this is crazy. Anyway, the first line says, well, not the first line, but a little bit further down, it says that I need an attorney. But then it says, it doesn't say I need one. It says it's highly encouraged.
Yeah, I can.
But
I
it doesn't
can.
say
Yeah,
that I need one.
I can help you
right?
with that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Well, before you go on, do you have the form in your hand right now?
I have the form in my hand right now.
Okay. Is there a Kinko's near there? Because what you need to do is you need to take that form, the original form, go to Kinko's and make a copy of it. Could you do that if you needed to? Okay. Then you would have bring both copies back home and review both copies and make sure that obviously they're identical. They should be if you made a copy. Take both of them, throw them both in the trash. Could you do that?
I'm weak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get them.
Yes. Don't do tax deeds yet. Don't do anything yet. Get the education first, because just because you get a tax deed or you get a property for $500 doesn't mean it's going to be profitable. And if you have to ask, then you're probably not ready to do that. And if you want to start investing, you want to get to the point where you'll go in and you'll look in a neighborhood and you'll buy 4 or 5 tax deeds in one neighborhood, but you'll already know what to look out for. You've got to have an ability to add value, or you're not going to be able to get any financing. If you can't add value, then you got to be well capitalized to where you can pay out of pocket for the rehab and get the property into the condition to be leased out. And then over long term, you'll make your money back. But that's just not, people run into tax deeds because you can get houses for cheap. If they got $500 tax deeds, why do you think institutional lenders aren't just going in there and buying all of them?
See, and that's why I always stopped.
Yeah, it's just not.
Because I've talked to Tax Deed Wolf. You know what I mean? I've talked to him a few times. And I keep saying to myself, like, well, why isn't Wells Fargo doing this?
Well, no, you can
You
make
see what I mean?
you can make money with tax deeds, but Tax Deed Wolf also has and first of all, he's a cool dude. I know him, so he gives good information
Yeah.
for tax deeds. But you've got to. He teaches you how to buy the tax deeds, and you can do that with him. And that's all that's what he says that he does. He'll teach you everything about buying tax deeds, and he delivers. As an investor who does everything, I got to choose where I want to make my money. So I go with the path of least resistance, where I can get the most for the least. And so when I was going into, buy tax deeds, I was doing that at one point, but there were tax deeds that were like, just like you say, $500. So in my mind, somebody's losing their house for $500. So I got 2 options. I can capitalize, or I can just pay their tax deed and have a potential family, keep their home. Now, I couldn't do that for everybody, but I ended up just paying a bunch of people's tax deeds because I couldn't do that. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I just know what type of investor that I want to be. And I know that part of our values is one of the things I'll never put somebody on the street for personal gain. Now, granted, tax deeds, they're going to be on the street anyway. Somebody going to buy it, right? But there's a lot of other things you have to look at when you're buying a cheap property. And it's really easy to get obligated to something that you can't get out of, because when you try to sell it, nobody wants to buy it because because now you're out of the tax deed situation and you're on the open market and no one wants to, so you're stuck with it. There's more, in my opinion, that can go wrong than can go right. Now, I know people that are making money in tax deeds. I'm not saying don't do tax deeds, but I'm saying if you have to ask, I think you should get your real estate education first, because on this other platform, I could seller finance it to somebody and then teach somebody how to build it up that way. Or I can partner with a nonprofit or Habitat for Humanity or a transitional housing organization, or I can get a grant to bring it in. And if I'm going to make it to serve a particular element of the society using transitional housing or whatever it is, I can do all of that stuff to make it profitable. But if you don't have that background, then you can obligate yourself to, and is a $500 house, you ain't gonna make no money off that. Right? You're just not. So if you're going to be a real estate investor, be a real estate investor. Don't just come in and do, okay, well, I just want to learn to wholesale, or I just want to learn to do tax deeds, or I just want to learn to buy and sell notes. Do everything, because I've had to switch the way I do things because maybe a project didn't go well, or it's bleeding my pockets this way. And I got to survive. I still got to be able to hunt. So, and again, I'm not saying don't do tax deeds. And, I know Tax Deed Wolf, I know he's a cool dude and he gives out good information, and he's made good money doing tax deeds, and he's taught other people how to do the same. So this is no reflection on him, because, I respect what he does. But for me, look, I'm 48 years old. I'm about to be 49 years old next month, and I didn't see everything. I was 3 years old going to real estate meetings. I lived through when interest rates in 1981 went up to 18%. I saw how people pivoted and navigated, and in retrospect, of course, the dot-com burst here in Silicon Valley in the 90s, the 08 debacle I've seen everything. So I know that, when people grasp one
The Trojan War,
The Berlin Wall. Color Me Bad.
Christ's birth.
Not Color Me Bad is wild.
So you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Just get your real estate education. Then you won't have to do tax deeds. You can acquire property for less than $500 and have it be a legit plan to go ahead and exit out of it the way you need to. You specifically, I'm not saying to the general public, don't do tax deeds, but if you have to ask, then there's a better way to make money, in my opinion. All right. And, New York, you say New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do business in New York, New Jersey, California, Oregon, or Washington. Those are the worst places to do business in. Especially if you plan on renting a property out. It's just too much. It's just too much. But I can teach you how to invest all over the country. Look, I got a property in St. Joseph, Missouri. Have you ever been there? You don't even have to answer. I know you haven't, because no one has. It's the armpit of the Midwest. Right? But I went ahead and bought a property out there for $49,000. It was a duplex. I told them to charge me $69,000. So that's what records, because I know I'm going to do a cash out refinance, and I want the appraiser to see that I bought it for 69, then consider my improvements. They credited me 20 back, right? So I netted buying it for $49,000, put 40 grand into it. So I was all in about 90 grand when it was all said and done. Did a cash out refinance for about 125,000, got all my money back out of the deal, all of it. It appraised for 125,000. I got most of that back. Everything I put in, I got out of it. That new mortgage cost me $750 a month. It rents out. One side rents out I had one side renting out for 9 and the other side renting out for 12. Right. So that was cash flowing like $1,400 a month. And I had no money into that deal. St. Joseph, Missouri. So there's deals like that all over the place. You just got to know how to find them, how to assess them, and how to know what your profit margin is going to be before you execute. So again, yeah, I don't do tax deeds, not because of tax deeds, but because I just have other ways of making money. That's helps me sleep at night. Can you imagine? I buy a tax deed for $500, and then the family loses their house for $500. I've lost a house before.
I will say this, Otis. Being in the car business for 14 years has kind of taken my soul away, not gonna lie to you. So you saying that actually has softened my heart a little bit. You know what I mean? Being born and raised in the Bronx, it already gives you kind of like a
you already gangster.
you know what I mean? But then I moved to North Carolina. I softened up a lot.
What part?
Like super sweet. Apex. And then
My family's out there. I got family in Apex.
Oh wow! Shout out to Apex, North Carolina.
Do you know Kim Sam or Kim Palmer and Kevin Palmer out there? They live right there. Okay, maybe not. All right, maybe. I don't know why I thought you would.
It's all good. It's not very many minorities that are not Indian out there in Apex, so we kind of all know each other a little bit.